Gentlemen, welcome to the regular meeting of Los Angeles City Council's Planning and Land Use Management Committee. It is Tuesday, the 20th day of January 21st day of January 2021. My name is Marquise Harris-Dawson. I serve as the chair of this committee, joined by our vice chair, Mr. Bob Blumenfield, and our member, Mr. Gil Cedillo. We will begin this agenda, Mr. Mejia, with item number 8.
Okay. Item number 8, Councilman, this is an appeal. It's being submitted by Jim Childs from the North University Park Community Association as it relates to the demo of a building in CD 9 and also the constructions of 102 apartment units.
All right, we have a report from staff on this. Mr. Chu.
Yes, good afternoon, Plum Committee Chair Committee. My name is Henry Chu, Associate Zoning Administrator, and item number 8 is an appeal for an environmental clearance for the project that proposes 102 units within a 6-story building. 5 of those units will be set aside for very low-income households and 2 units for workforce housing. The project's entitlements and environmental went before the City Planning Commission, and the Commission adopted a Class 32 categorical exemption for the project and denied the appellant's appeal. The Commission concurred that the project is an infill development and checks off all the boxes that qualify it for the categorical exemption. Also, none of the exceptions applied. The appellant filed an appeal of that decision, and it was determined that based on expert reports related to traffic, parking, air quality, water quality, historic resources, as well as an additional report submitted analyzing impacts to surrounding historic resources, the project will not have any adverse impact. And to address the appellant's appeal points, the project will be subject to a separate process for the University Park redevelopment plan, and based on submitted reports which were found acceptable by the City Planning Commission, will not have any adverse impact on Adams Boulevard or any historic cultural monuments, and is not within an HPOZ area. There are no mitigation measures because there have been no identified adverse impacts in review of the technical report submitted. Staff recommends the Plum Committee deny the appeal and sustain the decision that the project is categorically exempt.
Thank you. So we'll hear now from our appellant rep for 4 minutes or 59 seconds or less. I believe that's Mr. Childs.
Sanitation.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I'm so sorry. Did you say 4 minutes or 5 minutes? For the appellant.
59 seconds.
Oh.
Yes, Jim Childs, and Laura Myers is going to join me. I received the notice from I'm sorry. Let me restart here. From the City Planning Commission, and it announced 99 5-bedroom apartment units. I got a corrected letter of determination that said it would be 5 102-bedroom apartment units. That was in December. And then on my January notice, it was back to 99 5-bedroom units. And because of that, we went through the the planning department's location, and what we came up with was actually 106 units. And there were 5-bedroom units, but there were only 12 of them. And we came up with 86 7-bedroom units. So there seems to be some discrepancy here, which I'll let you and the city attorney and the applicants work out. But whatever the case is, clearly it's not a categorical exemption. When you put 1,000 or 1,500 students in the middle of a neighborhood, and a historic neighborhood at that, and claim that there's no potential impact and it's categorically exempt, you're not doing your CEQA responsibilities, and you all are aware of that. This is the planning department's continuing attempt to subvert CEQA process by saying everything is categorically exempt and seeing who in the community like me can stand up and challenge that. Laura, would you explain CRA to them, please?
Hi, my name is Laura Myers. I served on this particular redevelopment area advisory committee from 1989 until the end of the CRA. It was through efforts of myself, actually, our colleagues over here, and then Councilman Parks, that the overlay zone was adopted that was supposed to actually prevent developments like this. It was supposed to evaluate parking compared to units and beds, and that whole thing has been subverted. But in any case, the Community Redevelopment Agency redevelopment plan is still in effect. It was alluded to by staff that there will be, quote, a separate process. I would have thought the separate process would have concluded so that you could certify or not certify one single environmental clearance, because that separate process relates to the density bonus. Under the community redevelopment plan, actual density is calculated differently, and it's per acre, not per square foot, among other things. And the A density bonus is considered a variation to the plan, which would be what we would normally call a variance in regular city planning. That variation to the plan requires certain findings. One of them is that there is sufficient parking. One of them is that it's positive for the neighborhood. This project doesn't feel positive for the neighborhood. It certainly would be underparked. The Community Redevelopment Agency also never did adopt the TOC ordinance. I'm not even sure why, but I suspect for lack of staff to have done so. But in any case, there has been for a long time now, a zoning administrator's memorandum explaining how the TOC is not adopted, so there's no bypass of the rules. I have been testifying about and writing letters about the requirement for the CRA for well over a year on this project. So what happened at Planning Commission is the morning of the commission, they did an emergency amendment to the agenda to add a paragraph about the CRA. That it wasn't an emergency. They've known about it, had known about it for quite some time. Jim, did you have something else? Oh, he has a handout. Okay. So the problem is we haven't done the process on whether or not they're even going to grant through the other process the density bonus at all. But your CEQA clearance should be on the whole of the project and not this half, in effect, of the project. Last but not least, blinders. Our staff has had blinders on. You all designated Adams Boulevard from Figueroa to Crenshaw as a scenic highway in the mobility element. And this is right smack in the middle of that. It is not contributing anything good to our designated scenic highway. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have Ms. Casper, 5 minutes for the applicant.
Good afternoon. Andrew Brady, not Kendra Casper, on behalf of the project applicant. I think we will defer any comments until the end of public comment, and we'll be available to answer any questions that members of the committee may have.
So you're foregoing your 5 minutes?
Was it possible to defer?
It is not possible to defer.
Well, we'll take a brief time. I'm not going to need the full 5 minutes. Just to address one of as staff said, this project is outside of the University Park HPOZ. It's not within the boundaries of the HPOZ, so naturally the HPOZ standards don't apply. And just to address one point about the issues have been raised about CRALA. This is a CEQA appeal. This is only supposed to be on CEQA issues. It's got nothing to do with CRALA. And as the Commission may know, the city recently took CRALA authority. The project's going through the city's new process to apply for that. It has nothing to do with the CEQA analysis. The CEQA analysis analyzes the whole project. It is 102 units. Claim discrepancy has been resolved. So all of the information in the noticing and the analysis is all correct. It has been fully analyzed. And if there's any questions, as I said, we're happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have a representative from Council District 9? Going once. There we do not. All right, so we've got one public comment speaker on this matter, Ms. Jean Frost.
As the neighborhood council representative, I request what is routinely given the community impact statement representative.
Yes,
So is it 3 or 5 minutes?
it's 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Thank you very much. There is so much in the record here that is very significant. And clearly, it has reached a point where there is so many different issues, it does not qualify for a Class 32 infill exemption. And I would like to make sure that you look at the letter from Amy Mintier of Chatton, Brown, Karstens, and Mintier that outlines the legalese of this matter. I'm here representing the neighborhood council that exists in CD 1, 9, and 8's purview. And we work very strongly to see that neighborhood concerns are addressed in any development that comes before us. The neighborhood council felt that it was an incompatible development. The orientation on Adams was wrong because they were making Adams a side street and Severance the main street. Ground level podium parking is not compatible. There is a great density, that is a question mark. When you have 5, 6, 7 bedrooms per unit, that is not family housing. It does not comply with the neighborhood stabilization ordinance. There is an insufficient affordable unit count. A building of this density should have at least 15% affordable units. The setbacks are inadequate. Rooftop decks are not compatible. There's a lack of variation in design and population. It does not comply with CRA and South community plans. And to have a CEQA exemption for a Class 32 infill project, when Class 32 infill projects provide for exceptions. The word infill doesn't cover everything. In this project, there is so much substantial in the record to review that it ought not to be categorically exempt. This is a legacy neighborhood. We have the John Tracy Clinic site, which was the site of Carolyn Severance's farm. We have the Fraternity Sorority Road District. We have the University Park HPOZ. We have monuments that are all listed in the record. And what will be affected is the feeling and association and location of these historic buildings. It's important that we leave to our people coming after us something that we can be proud of. And our neighborhood council would like to see a development that it can be proud of. Unfortunately, the developer came to our full board and said, this is not a discretionary project. It's by right. And our comment was, if it is by right, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. Please do not accept the categorical exemption. And come walk the neighborhood with me so you can stand up for the community. I have a couple of handouts. Who do I give them to? Okay. Thank you very much for the extra 2 minutes.
All right, now we have for 2 minutes, not because there's a community impact statement, but because this person has signed up for every single item on the agenda. So in that situation, we give a person 2 minutes to speak for the balance of the meeting. That person is Mr. Wayne.
That's right. So you see today, over and over again, the continual eradication of the black man from CD9, and it continues today with you slippery, sleazy, slimy, evil motherfuckers. 102-bedroom apartment units. What does this mean? Construction 5 102-bedroom apartment unit. That ain't even English, fool. It's what you gonna do. You're gonna kill the trees, but you're gonna provide a clubhouse. A clubhouse for people to do what? they ain't gonna do? They're gonna shut that clubhouse down and rent that out to hoes, just like before. So, fuck this project, and I hopefully they indict current price before you break ground, which would be good. Now we get to real shit, number 4. That's right, people, number 4, Keys, is moving up to West Ventura Boulevard, that's right. Now, I don't want you fucking with this project. Don't move shit. Give them everything they want. You know why? Because I went yesterday and they gave me free cookies and coffee and they gave me 39% off of retail from my truck parts. That's right. Because they know how to pimp out. They know how to do business. They said, Wayne, how do we deal? I said, we deal like we pimps. And they said, that's what we're going to do. So Blob Bleebenblield, a.k.a. Bob Blumenfield, get your ass up there and make sure you give them everything, including 2 additional variances. Let's get on to West Ventura Boulevard and sell some fucking cars. Thank you.
All right, that concludes comments from the public on this matter.
My name is Kathleen Estrada, and I did sign up to public comment.
Oh, this is not general public comment. Sorry, we'll come back to that.
Okay,
Thank you. All right, questions or comments for staff members? Hearing none, I'll move that we deny the appeal filed by Jim Childs and thereby sustain the City Planning Commission's action to sustain the zoning administrators, thereby approving the proposed project's categorical exemption for the property located at 806 West Adams Boulevard, 758-832 West Adams Boulevard, and 2610 South Severance Street. Without objection, that'll be the order. Been seconded by Mr. Blumenfeld. All right. Thank you so much. That takes item 8 off of our agenda, and now we'll go to public comment, and we'll begin with general public comment. So, Ms. Estrada, now's your moment.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Estrada. I'm not a director of planning or on a board or a committee. I'm an Angelino, a taxpayer, a homeowner, and a lover of the historic in LA, and specifically University Park. I'm not an eloquent speaker, and this is my first meeting here, but I am a concerned citizen, and I've encouraged you to walk our neighborhood and see what it's like there. And I'm not against any new housing, but the size and the density of this proposed project at 806 Adams is neither conducive nor appropriate to our neighborhood. There's been many experts that have given you lots of reasons not to build this, and I hope that you would consider it more in the future.
Thank you so much. All right, we will begin our agenda with items 3, 4, and 5, which we'll consider together. If you could read those into the record. Mr.
Yes,
Meyer.
item 3, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the inclusion of the Hawk House as a historic cultural monument. Item 4 is a report from the City Planning Commission. It's a zone change for the construction and maintenance of a new auto dealership. And item number 5, Councilman, this is a report, again, from the City Planning Commission as it relates to a project in the Southeast LA Community Plan for a zone change. It's also inclusive of a CPIO amendment for 127 dwelling units. 100% of the units are affordable units, Council.
All right, we have one public comment speaker on one of these items, Dana Sales. Dana Sales is declining. this item. Any discussion, members? Mr. Blumenfield.
Well, just a quick comment on item 4. Just want you to know I'm excited about it. It's a project that's going to transform a vacant car dealership into one of the largest and advanced Porsche dealerships in the country, bringing a lot of great jobs, and they have the potential to be one of the largest volume dealers. I think it's going to be good for the district, and it's going to be good for our city. So I'm thrilled to work with them to see this come to fruition. It's a very positive proposal.
Excellent. All right. Mr. Blumenfeld agreeing with Mr. Wayne Mancino on this item. I'll move that we take all 3 items on consent, including the findings and actions without objection. That'll be the order. There's been a request, members, to continue item number 2 until February 4th, 2020. Without objection, that'll be the order. That takes us to item number 8. I'm sorry, we just did 8, right?
We did, Council. I think it would be item 1, Mr. Bertoni.
Yes, item 1, Mr. Bertoni.
Thank you, Chair Harris Dawson and members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Vince Bertoni, Director of Planning. Just one thing I want to like to update the committee on this week is we're starting the update of the city's housing element, which is one of the required elements of our general plan, and the Department of City Planning is doing that in partnership with the Housing and Community Investment Department. So we just initiated the update, which is will be for the years 2021 to 2029. So the state requires cities and the City of Los Angeles to update their housing element every 8 years. So this is the next 8-year cycle we're planning for. The last time we updated the housing element was back in 2013. And it's really our opportunity to really tackle, the housing needs of our city through clear goals and effective policies. And we're looking at ways, at creative solutions to produce housing from a wide variety of Angelenos. So we're looking at people throughout the various economic spectrum, as well as people from different places in the city, both geographically and also parts of our population that may have special needs, such as elderly and people who may have disabilities. So it's really looking at it in a very comprehensive way. It's not something that necessarily, although we're looking at overall housing production and housing supply, and that's important, and we'll be looking at how do we do that in an equitable way. It doesn't, this process in and of itself doesn't change any of the land use in our general plan, our community plans, our specific plans for our zoning. It puts forward programs that will kind of help define that for the future through implementation. In order to kick it off, what we do each time we do, the last several times we've updated our housing element. We've done it. We bring together a task force, which we just are doing another task force. It's called the Housing Element Task Force, and we're convening them for the first time tomorrow, Wednesday, January 22nd. And this is a large group, about 63 people, and they're from a real diverse group of community leaders and professionals who have real specialized knowledge in housing issues and those that relate to housing through all the things that I had mentioned. So these come from, there's a lot of different opinions of people who will be on this committee. It's hugely diverse in terms of the thoughts of housing and housing policy in Los Angeles. And this group is really going to help assist our department and the Housing Community Investment Department to evaluate, potentially new or updated policies as they relate to issues such as housing preservation, production. These could include things such as tenants' rights, homelessness prevention, zoning for housing, and other issues that would be similar to that. But in addition to a task force, we're going to be kicking off a series of open houses that will be open to everyone over the next month. We'll have that will really begin the process of a greater public engagement in terms of what should be in the housing element. That we have to, as part of our housing element plan for our share of the regional housing needs. It's allocated to us by our Council of Governments, which is the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG, and is part of our Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA, process. And so, although there's some tentative numbers that we'll have from our RHNA process, we won't know until later this fall what our final number is. But because we have to have this plan in place and submitted to the state of California by 2021, what we want to do is kind of get ahead of of the arena allocation. So as soon as possible, just at least start forming the policy. So that's why we're kicking it off well ahead of knowing what our final numbers are from the state, because there's lots of things around housing policies that will apply regardless of what your exact number is as a city. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer questions. I also have with me Arthi Varma, our Deputy Director, who handles citywide policy issues too.
Questions or comments, members? I have one. So, at what point in 2021 is this due, and is this something that the council approves or staff just submits, or the mayor submits? How's it go?
It is an element of the general plan, so it is something that the city council will approve. So it will go through a series of outreach in terms of task forces and public hearings. It'll go to our city planning commission for the recommendation. It'll come to this committee, then the full council for adoption. So there'll be a very thorough review with both the city planning commission, this committee, and the full council as part of it. And I believe
Housing committee?
Yeah.
Housing committee?
It's up typically to the city council president's office to determine which committees will be assigned. This would typically go to Plum because of land use implications, and it may or may not go to Housing Committee. And the deadline for it to be submitted to the state of California is October of 2021.
October, so towards the end of the year. Got it. Mr. Bloomfield.
Yeah, and then 21.
We have to submit to the state of October 2021. Yeah.
There was all the talk earlier this year that this year is going to be different in terms of the state, that there'll be consequences if we don't hit those goals. Do you have any further information about how that works, what those consequences could be?
Right. I mean, the consequences are. So there's been a series of state laws that have been passed over the last several years that deal with housing and the requirement for local jurisdictions, cities and counties to provide for not just the opportunity for housing, but to really start looking to make sure they're providing the production of housing. There are more through those process. There's more penalties that really relate to additional funding sources that the city would lose through the state, as well as the city losing land use control over certain types of projects. So combined together, and they're very kind of specific in terms of, so the consequences now are fairly significant, where they weren't nearly as significant in the past. So that's an important point to make. So there are some very significant penalties if we don't have an element which the state deems to be in compliance with state law. So that's important. We also are going to have a much higher number of housing units than we've had in the past, and because for several reasons, but one of the reasons is in the past, the numbers that are allocated are very prospective. They're just looking at what you need to produce in the future. This one looks both prospectively and retrospectively in the sense that you've had housing targets and needs in the past that you haven't met, so it kind of brings those both together, so the number's larger. And as part of that process this last year through our council, so the state allocated to all the Council of Governments higher housing numbers than they had in the past, so they're very much larger numbers. And then our Council of Governments wanted to make sure that those housing units were distributed closer to where the jobs are and the transportation is. So we have a little bit of higher obligation because of that, with a higher amount of penalty. So it's going to be significant. We'll see until we get there's a lot of, as we go through this, we have to take a look at not just what the number is, but what the methodology they give in terms of how we can count units towards it as we kind of go through the process. So we don't necessarily have that number right now because there's an overall housing number, but then there's the other issue about, okay, what land in your city can you count as really producing it, and what information do you need to verify that it accounts? For example, it's easy if you're a place, pick maybe a fast-growing city out in Riverside County or San Bernardino County, which is largely farmland, which you can say you're going to take 100 acres of farmland and turn it into housing. We know that you can actually build the housing there. What's a little bit more, takes a lot more analysis is in a place like Los Angeles, where things are fairly built out. So yes, you have parking lots, but you also may have like commercial buildings. And so there's a conversation that needs to occur about the methodology, what we can count towards actually counting for our arena in terms of what we can physically build. So there's going to be a lot of conversation around that. And that conversation this time is going to probably be a little bit more challenging because the numbers are higher and the penalties are more.
And the conversation is between us and the state?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what qualifies, yeah, it's a little bit with the Council of Governments, but largely us and the state in terms of how that works out. And I say that as a background is that this is going to be a much more complex process than it's been in the past, because of the new rules that are in place.
And then the land use things that we might lose, what are some of those powers?
It's the by right. It's basically having more housing approved by right without city discretionary approval over it.
SB 50.
Yeah. Well, it's previous bills. You want to kind of go until it's really SB 35.
There's a bill in 2017, SB 35, that streamlined, made certain projects ministerial if it conformed with underlying zoning, and looked at whether jurisdictions were meeting their RENA allocations as the trigger for that.
So, for example, you have to have mandatory streamline over two issues. One of them is you have a target of overall number of units, regardless of the income levels, and then you have certain by certain income levels. And so we typically have met in the past our overall number, but not certain income groups. So right now we have certain SB 35 streamlining that only occurs with certain income level projects, which are a relatively smaller group. But if we aren't able to show that we have that we're meeting the requirements for our overall numbers, then that means all housing projects would be subject to that. So that'd be a significant change.
All housing projects would be subject to this by right.
Yeah, exactly. The SB 35.
And by right could be, that determines how tall the building is.
Exactly. Setbacks, parking, everything.
And not right now, but I mean, this is something we need to figure out a way to communicate and have a narrative about, because it's a big deal in terms of what the shape of what this city is going to look like if we don't hit these numbers, and sort of where to point the finger.
Yeah, and
better and for worse when this kind of stuff starts happening.
Right, and we're still early on because it's such a big process. We're starting just to outreach on that before we have all the answers, because there's no way we won't get our final numbers till this September, right? October of 2020. Yeah, so they give us October. We won't have our final numbers and the final methodology till October of this year, but we can't do this all in 1 year. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of it and have the conversation now. So we're starting to get that information out there. But yeah, that's where we're starting the conversation early.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Blumenfeld. Mr. Cedillo, anything on this?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you. All right, we will continue the item number 1 for 7 days, and move to item number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a motion, corrects bond, and it's instructing city planning and the city attorney to prepare 2 ordinances relative to historic cultural monuments and the initiation and notification process.
All right, we have staff report on this item.
Good afternoon, Ken Bernstein with City Planning. We're here to answer any questions you may have. There are 2 parts to this motion. One related to the historic cultural monument initiation process, and the second related to the demolition notification procedures in our building code, which are under the responsibility of the Department of Building and Safety. There is a representative from Council District 5 who has, I believe, some recommendations for amendments.
Thank you. And what, generally speaking, do you know what it does to demolition requirements?
The recommendation in the motion is to extend the demolition notification period from 30 days, which is what is under the law today, to a 60-day notification for demolition of all buildings 45 years old or older.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. I wish the folks from WAHA and the North University Park Community Association and the Adams District had not left, because that's something they've been asking for a while. We have a representative from Council District 5.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Councilmember Koretz did submit and initiate this motion out of a concern for being able to earlier identify historically significant buildings that are under threat of demolition. Due to a number of concerns that were expressed to our office, we would like to recommend removing the first part of this motion related to initiation of historic designations and just move forward with the 30-day to 60-day notification at this time.
Thank you so much. Question on this. Did you all consider penalties for violating, altering the penalties for violation of the policy?
I think Councilmember Koretz in our office are quite interested in a number of issues related to demolition of historically significant buildings, as we've seen increased kind of abuse of this issue. At this time, we did just want to move forward with at least a tighter notification timeframe, but are certainly interested in looking at this issue much more comprehensively.
Excellent. Mr. Bernstein.
Yes, Ken Bernstein. I just want to add on that point on demolition penalties. There is a separate council motion initiated by Councilmember O'Farrell that is pending, and our office is working with Department of Building and Safety on a report back on that motion to look at enhanced penalties for unpermitted demolitions.
We'll be eager to see the results of that work. So thank you, and thank you for Council District 5, 13, and Council District 11, any testimony in this regard on this item? No. Okay. Any comments or discussion, members? Hearing none, I'll move that we adopt this motion as amended by Council District 5.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Blumenfeld. Without objection, that'll be the order. That takes us to item number 7.
Item 7, Councilman, it's a motion, Koretz, Weezer, instructing city planning along with the city attorney and CD5 to prepare a draft ordinance that would provide full exemption to the West LA traffic impact assessment fee.
Excellent. We have a report from Department of City Planning. Now, Ms. Valdez on this. All right. Here we go.
Good afternoon, Rebecca Valdez with Planning Department. At this time, we do not have a report. We do know the motion is also referred to Transportation Committee, so we'll be observing that discussion as it moves forward.
Okay, thank you. We have a representative from Council District 5 on this matter. Item number 7. All right. Council District 5 has decided to forego. Any comment on this item? Any discussion, members? Seeing none, we'll move that we adopt this item and send it on to Transportation Committee and the full council. Without objection, that'll be the order. Can you confirm, Mr. Mejia, that concludes business for today's meeting?
Council member, just a recommendation, Adrian Corsani, City Attorney, for the speaker who spoke to general public comment on the appeal item. I would just recommend the city clerk add her comment to the council file for item number 8.
Thank you.
This concludes the meeting, Council.
Thank you so much. We're adjourned.